They had already passed the first sealed door. They had already ignored the warnings carved into stone. They had already gone deeper than anyone before them. But what they were about to find was never meant to be discovered. 40 meters below the surface, the tunnel changed. The air became heavier, the walls narrowed, and the silence no longer felt empty. One of the team members stopped walking. He turned slowly toward the darkness behind them. He said he heard something, not ahead, but below. At first, they thought it was just falling dust. Then they heard it again, a low vibration, echoing from somewhere deeper in the structure. Not a sound, more like the stone itself shifting. They moved forward anyway. The passage ended abruptly, and that's when they found it. A vertical shaft, descending straight into darkness. No steps, no rope, no markings, just a perfectly carved drop, disappearing into black. They lowered a light. The beam fell, and kept falling. The bottom didn't appear. Then suddenly, something interrupted the light. Not the ground, something else. For a brief second, the beam touched a surface. Not flat, not natural, carved, deliberate, and covered in symbols. They pulled the light back up. No one spoke, because at that moment, they all realized the same thing. This wasn't just another chamber. This was something deeper, older, hidden beneath everything they had already found. And the Maya had sealed it away, not with a door, but by burying it beneath the earth itself. They secured the rope. One of them volunteered to descend first. The camera followed. The light moved downward, slowly. The walls of the shaft were smooth, too smooth, as if carved with precision tools. Centuries before they existed. Halfway down, the first symbol appeared, then another, then dozens, carved directly into the shaft walls. Not decorative, not ceremonial. These were different, sharp, aggressive, and repeated over and over again. The descent slowed, because the deeper they went, the symbols changed. They became larger, more chaotic, almost rushed, as if whoever carved them was running out of time. Then the rope stopped moving. The ground had finally appeared. The first explorer stepped off. Dust rose slowly around his boots. He lifted the light and froze. The chamber was enormous, much larger than expected. The ceiling disappeared into shadow. The walls curved outward, forming a vast circular room. But that wasn't what stopped him. It was the sound. He took one step. The echo returned instantly, but it didn't fade. It repeated, again, and again, and again. Not like a normal echo. It lingered, as if the room was holding onto the sound. The rest of the team reached the bottom. They all heard it now. Every movement created a delayed repetition. Every breath returned, seconds later. Then one of them whispered something. No one understood the words, but the echo repeated them, clearly, louder, as if something else had spoken. And that's when they realized, this wasn't just another chamber. This place was listening. The chamber absorbed every sound, holding it, bending it, returning it in distorted fragments that didn't feel natural. The team stood in a wide circle, light sweeping slowly across the curved stone walls. Dust drifted in the air, floating like fine ash. One of them took another step. The echo followed, but this time, it returned from a different direction. Not behind them, not above. From somewhere along the far wall, as if the room itself had responded. They stopped immediately. Another light turned toward the sound. The beam revealed carvings etched into the stone, stretched across the wall in long horizontal bands. At first glance, they looked ceremonial, but as the team moved closer, the difference became clear. These weren't decorative. They were urgent. The lines were deeper, the edges rougher. Some symbols overlapped, as if carved in haste. One of the explorers brushed dust away with the gloved hand. The symbol beneath was unmistakable. A descending spiral, then another, and another, all pointing downward. The same shape repeated again and again across the chamber walls, always angled toward the center of the room. Not random, not artistic, intentional, a pattern. They spread out, scanning the entire chamber. Every wall segment contained variations of the same spiral. Some were clean, others distorted or partially erased, as if someone tried to remove them. Then the sound returned, a faint echo, but no one had moved. The team froze. The echo repeated a soft scraping sound, like stone against stone. It came from somewhere near the floor. They lowered their lights. The ground dipped slightly, forming a shallow circular depression. The dust there was thinner, as if something had disturbed it long ago. One of them stepped forward. The echo followed but delayed. A second later, the same step returned, louder, except this time, it didn't match. They all heard it. An extra footstep, not synchronized, not theirs. Silence followed. No one spoke. The lead explorer crouched, brushing dust away carefully. Unlike the rough floor, the surface had been polished, perfectly circular. Then he noticed the line, a thin carved groove running along the outer edge. He traced it with the light. It spiraled inward, slowly, tightly, a spiral carved directly into the floor, larger than any symbol they had seen before. They cleared more dust. The full shape emerged. The spiral extended from the outer edge, winding inward toward a single point in the center. Small markings lined the groove, placed at irregular intervals. Some looked like directional indicators. Others resembled coded instructions. This wasn't decoration. This was a map. The spiral matched the symbols on the walls, all pointing inward, towards something buried beneath them. Another echo returned, this time unmistakable, a whisper. No one had spoken, yet the sound repeated clearly, bouncing from wall to wall. One of the team members turned quickly. "Did you hear that?" The chamber answered, "Hear that, hear that." The echo stretched unnaturally, repeating longer than it should have. Then something else happened, a faint vibration, not loud, but enough to disturb the dust along the spiral groove. Fine particles shifted slightly toward the center, as if air was moving. From below, they all stepped back. The light focused on the middle point of the spiral, a small circular indentation, too precise to be natural. One of them reached forward. He hesitated. The chamber was silent again. Then, slowly, he pressed his gloved hand into the center. Nothing happened. For a moment, it seemed like a dead end. Then the echo returned, much louder, the sound of stone moving. Deep beneath them, the vibration grew stronger. Dust lifted from the floor, and the spiral began to shift. The movement was subtle at first, so slight that it almost looked like an illusion created by drifting dust. But then the line of the spiral shifted again, just a few millimeters, grinding softly against the surrounding stone. The team stepped back instantly. The sound echoed violently across the chamber, repeating in layered waves that made it impossible to tell where it originated. Every vibration multiplied, bouncing from wall to wall, until the entire room seemed alive with movement. Then the center of the spiral sank, not quickly, not mechanically, but slowly, like something unlocking after centuries of pressure. The polished stone disc in the middle lowered by a fraction. Dust slid inward, collecting along the groove. A narrow gap appeared, thin, dark, perfectly circular. Air moved upward from below, cold, dry, ancient. One of the explorers leaned closer, directing the light into the opening. The beam disappeared into a narrow vertical passage. The sides were carved with the same repeating symbols seen on the walls, but here, they were tighter, more condensed, almost compressed. This wasn't just another tunnel. It was deliberate, hidden, and aligned precisely beneath the spiral. The team exchanged glances. No one spoke. The meaning was becoming clear. The spiral wasn't just a symbol, it was a guide. Something had been sealed below, not with a door, but with a mechanism. The vibration stopped. Silence returned. Then, from somewhere deeper inside the opening, a faint echo rose. A hollow tone, like wind passing through a narrow corridor, but there was no wind. The sound repeated again, slightly different this time, almost like a distant breath. One of them whispered, "It's open." The echo responded seconds later, "Open, open." The team prepared a smaller camera and lowered it slowly into the opening. The cable fed downward while the screen flickered to life. At first, the image showed only rough stone walls. Then the symbols began again, more aggressive than before, some carved deep enough to cast sharp shadows. Several had been partially erased, not worn away, but deliberately damaged. Someone had tried to remove them, or hide them. The camera descended further. The passage widened. And then, it stopped. The floor appeared, but it wasn't solid. Instead, the lens revealed a second chamber below, smaller, but shaped differently. The stone here looked darker, almost burned. At the far side, something reflected the light. A surface. Flat. Vertical. Perfectly straight. The team leaned closer to the screen. It was a door, smaller than the first one, but more precise. And at the center, a faint glow, barely visible, but unmistakable. A soft golden light pulsed slowly from within the seams. Not steady, not flickering, rhythmic, like breathing. The chamber above fell completely silent. No one moved. The realization came all at once. The Maya hadn't sealed this location once. They had sealed it multiple times. A chamber, inside a chamber. The spiral hadn't revealed the final destination. It had revealed the next step. The echo returned suddenly, but this time, it didn't repeat their movement. It repeated the faint vibration from below. The golden light pulsed again. Slow, deliberate, and for the first time, the team understood. This door wasn't just glowing, it was responding. For a long moment, no one spoke. The faint golden pulse continued beneath them, steady and slow, like a distant heartbeat echoing through stone. The screen showed the narrow chamber below, the small door standing silently at the far wall, its edges glowing just enough to separate it from darkness. The team adjusted the camera, lowering it further. The passage widened slightly near the bottom, allowing the lens to rotate. More of the chamber came into view. The floor below wasn't flat, it slopped gently toward the door, as if the entire space had been shaped to direct attention forward. Symbols covered the walls, but unlike the ones above, these were different, less chaotic, more structured, arranged in vertical lines leading toward the doorway. Not warnings, instructions. One of the explorers pointed at the screen. Several of the glyphs repeated in sequence. The same shapes appeared again and again, each time slightly altered, as if documenting stages of something. A transition, a process. The carvings formed a progression from the chamber entrance all the way to the door. Then the light pulsed again, this time brighter. The glow slipped through the narrow seams outlining the door frame, illuminating the surrounding stone for just a second before fading back to its faint rhythm. The reflection reached the camera lens, washing the screen in warm gold. The echo chamber above caught the faint vibration. It returned seconds later, amplified. The sound of the pulse delayed spread across the upper chamber like a distant drumbeat. The team looked up instinctively, as if expecting the walls around them to move again, but everything remained still. Only the faint dust drifting through the air reacted, swirling slowly in the light beams. They lowered the camera to the floor of the lower chamber. The surface there was smoother than expected, carved, intentional. A narrow path ran from the base of the passage directly toward the door. On either side, shallow grooves formed curved lines, echoing the spiral pattern from above, but stretched into elongated arcs. Another connection, another layer of design. This place hadn't been built randomly. It had been engineered to guide movement toward the door. The cable reached its limit. The camera could go no further. They would have to descend. No one volunteered immediately. The silence stretched. The golden light pulsed again. Stronger, longer. The glow lingered this time, faintly illuminating the carvings around the frame. For a brief moment, one symbol became clear, a circular shape divided into 4 sections, each segment pointing inward toward the center. The same symbol appeared above the door, then again along the wall, then again, carved directly into the stone floor in front of it. Repeated, deliberate. The lead explorer finally spoke. "We go down." They secured a second rope, feeding it carefully into the opening revealed by the spiral mechanism. The cable slid slowly into darkness. One by one, they prepared to descend into the lower chamber. The first light dropped through. The glow from the door reacted immediately. It brightened, not dramatically, but enough to notice. The camera captured the change. The pulse shortened, faster now, The descent began. Boots touched the lower chamber floor. Dust rose gently, disturbed. For the first time in centuries, the air here felt colder, heavier, more confined. The walls leaned inward, amplifying every movement. Even small sounds returned as tight echoes. They turned toward the door. Up close, it looked smaller than expected. No handle, no hinges, just a seamless stone slab, fitted perfectly. But the light, it wasn't coming from cracks. It was coming from within. Thin veins of gold shimmered beneath the surface. They pulsed slowly, spreading outward from the center before fading again. Alive. That was the only word that made sense. One of them moved closer. The pulse accelerated. The glow strengthened. The chamber responded. A faint vibration traveled through the floor. The echoes returned instantly, layering over each other in tight loops. The team stopped. They all understood at once. The door wasn't reacting to time. It was reacting to them. Another step forward. The pulse quickened again. The golden veins brightened. The echo chamber above repeated the vibration seconds later, creating a delayed rhythm between the two spaces. Then something unexpected happened. A low tone emerged from the door. Not loud, barely audible, but constant. A hum. Deep, resonant. The sound spread through the chamber walls and returned as a vibrating echo. The air felt heavier, charged with something impossible to identify. The lead explorer raised his hand slowly toward the surface. The glow intensified. The hum deepened, and the door responded before it was touched. Within the ruins, we found it. A barrier not made of stone alone, but of something far more ancient. The ground trembled. The air grew heavy with the weight of centuries-old secrets waking from their slumber. Every instinct told us to turn back, but the echoes of the past were calling us deeper into the dark. It wasn't reacting to my touch. It was reacting to my presence. A biometric lock from a lost civilization. One final choice: to stay in the shadows of history, or step into the light of the unknown. The carvings warn of a downward path. A sequence of symbols that serve as both a map and a testament. Someone tried to hide this discovery. Someone tried to erase the identity of the one who stood here before us. The mechanism is alive. There is no turning back the gears of history once they have begun to move. The vault is opening. Whatever lies beyond this door is about to change everything we know about our world. The line down the center widened slowly. At first, it was barely visible, a thin separation where the two halves of the stone no longer sat perfectly together. But as the vibration intensified, the gap expanded by fractions of a millimeter, releasing a faint golden glow from within. The hum grew louder, not sharp, not mechanical, deep, ancient. The chamber walls began to echo in uneven pulses, as if struggling to contain the sound. Dust fell from above in soft streams. The narrow space amplified every vibration, making the movement feel larger than it actually was. No one moved. No one spoke. They watched the line widen. Another pulse. The gap expanded further. A thin beam of golden light slipped through, cutting across the chamber floor. It wasn't bright enough to illuminate the room completely, but it was focused, precise, like something shining from far deeper inside. The explorer stepped back instinctively. The glow reacted. It intensified. The hum deepened again. Then the two halves of the door shifted, not outward, but slightly inward. Stone ground against stone. The sound echoed violently through the chamber and returned from above seconds later, doubled, layered, disorienting. The entire structure seemed to resonate with the movement. The opening widened. Light spilled through, brighter now, warmer. The beam stretched across the chamber floor and climbed slowly up the opposite wall. Dust particles drifted through it, glowing briefly before disappearing into shadow. Then something changed. The pulse stopped. Completely. The hum faded. Silence fell. The light remained. Steady now. No longer breathing. The light was just open. The team exchanged glances. One of them moved closer. Carefully. The light inside the doorway didn't flicker. It simply filled the narrow gap with a steady golden glow that made it impossible to see beyond. The opening widened another fraction. Enough to see movement. Not fast. Not clear. Just a subtle shifting inside the light. The explorer leaned slightly to the side, trying to see past the beam. For a split second, The light dimmed, and behind it, a shape appeared. Not fully visible, just an outline, vertical, still. Then the pulse returned. Violently, the glow exploded outward, flooding the chamber with blinding gold. The hum roared back, louder than before, shaking the narrow walls. The air rushed outward cold, dry, and ancient. The team staggered back. The beam expanded rapidly, filling the chamber and passage above. The glow intensified one final time. The stone floor trembled, and something moved forward. From inside the chamber, the feed cut to static. Silence.